Hi and welcome. I'm Laura and this is Craft Yoga. Your practice today is a slowed down yin-based practice. So lots of time to get into any of the postures. This is a mental reset really for you, along with a physical practice. You get so many benefits from taking the time to slow down. Today I have a very rain/snow day, even though I know this is going to be posted here probably somewhere mid to late August, but there's a lot of rain going out. It's gray out. This is a great day to reset. Any day is a great day to reset. If you're practicing with me today, you may want to have a bolster. And if you don't have a bolster, you can grab a nice pillow, throw a pillow off of your couch or even off of your bed. But you can do every single posture without any props whatsoever. And we're going to go ahead and get started with our reset by coming to lie down onto our backs in a Shavasana pose. So make yourself comfortable. Slowly roll down onto your back. You can cover up with a blanket to begin with if you want to be extra cozy to start your practice. Maybe even have the knees supported if you have your bolster handy, placing that under the knees. Allow the legs just to fall out to the side and the arms to open up, palms facing upward. Fingers can gently curl in. And start to slow down before we start to move. Finding this gentle space for yourself on the mat and allowing yourself this time just to give yourself a break. Take the pressure off of your shoulders, both physically and mentally. And enjoy this space between yourself and the world. Begin to make that connection between yourself and the breath and finding the inhale and the exhale. Using that gentle rhythm to calm the mind. We'll begin our practice with the pose that a lot of times we end our practice with. We'll come into a reclined twist. And starting with drawing both of the knees in to begin with, just to give ourselves a little warm up, a little release into the low back to start in this reclined wind release pose. So wrapping the arms around the front of the shins, continue to breathe. Allow the low back to feel heavy. Maybe draw the knees in, lifting the tailbone a little further up off of the mat. Taking some gentle movement here. You can even take the hands to the front of the shins. Slowly rocking, drawing the knees in, releasing the tailbone further down to touch the mat. And maybe even rocking from side to side. A slight massage into the side or the upper glutes. And when you're ready, let's extend the left leg out long. We'll keep the right knee drawn into the chest. Give it a nice squeeze. From here, we're going to roll onto the outside edge of the left hip. So the very outer edge. And you'll come so that the hips are stacked, the right on top of the left. Now, if the right knee does not touch the ground right away, which it doesn't need to. That's perfectly fine. It can be lifted. You might be a little stiff. I feel a little stiff or ready to start the practice. The left hand can just rest on the outside of that right thigh, and the right arm, let's just have it in a cactus shape today. So you have this 90-degree shape with the elbow. Begin by gazing up at the ceiling, perhaps softly closing the eyes. Move once more into the breath. Allow the breath to move freely as you open up on the inhale, expanding throughout the front and the back body. Noticing that the ribs can expand just as fully in the back as they do on the front. And on your outgoing breath, maybe you feel that top leg become a little heavier. Perhaps your twist grows a little more. And maybe at this point you feel like you can take the gaze over towards the right, looking towards your right arm. You can also just keep the gaze neutral. And the choice is up to you. Personally, I prefer to just keep this twist into my spine and leave the neck away from it. We're going to come out of this posture a little differently than we do normally. Usually we unwind and just come right back onto our backs. Today, we're actually going to come over and moving towards the left, we're going to come onto our bellies. So go ahead and take the right arm, bring it towards the left. The right knee can stay at the 90-degree angle. Open out to the side. So we're onto our bellies. Now moving into a sphinx. Adjust yourself as you need to stay onto your mat and to stay comfortable. Move the elbows just slightly in front of the shoulders. And then the hands can open up slightly wider than the shoulders so that they're at a slight diagonal with the fingertips pointing in front of you. Keeping the right leg bent here in this half frog position while in Sphinx is a deeper back bend. So if you're feeling any restriction or sharpness into the low back, feel free to just straighten out that right leg and come into Sphinx and enjoy your Sphinx pose. Whether in Sphinx or in your half frog, keep the chest lifted so that we're not collapsing into the shoulders. Start to feel the gentle rise and fall of the belly against the mat. We'll slowly come out of half frog and straighten out that right leg. Coming through Sphinx. And then we'll pause here in Sphinx for just a couple of breaths. Enjoying that little release into the low back, allowing the feet to be wide to make space. Perhaps noting the new sensation as we connect with the mat a little more into our abdomen. And feel free to stay right here. If you would like to have a supported back bend and go a little deeper, this is where we'll grab our pillow or our bolster. You may need to fiddle with it a little bit, but we're going to work with the bolster and bring it to settle right underneath the low ribs. As always, find something that feels right, feels comfortable and supported for you, and so that you can keep breathing, so that we're not holding the breath and feel like we're tightening in other areas to compensate for a new shape. If you are using the supported cobra and you have that prop, the bolster or pillow, underneath the low ribs, now we have a little more pressure into the abdomen. Feeling out a new sensation. Perhaps encouraging, along with a deeper back bend, opening more into the front body, encouraging better digestion. A little massage into the abdominal organs. With care, start to remove that bolster or pillow if you were using it. You can just keep it at the back edge of your mat. And then lower down onto your belly, take the hands underneath the shoulders and push back. For a moment, coming into your choice, either a narrow-legged or a wide-legged child's pose. We're just going to give the low back a little release here before we move into the next posture. And at the same time, just allow the shoulders to relax down the body. We have this opportunity now with the head, the forehead, connecting to the mat to give ourselves a little massage across the third eye. Massaging out any tension. Rolling into the skin and the muscles of the forehead to soften and relax into the muscles along the top of the face, and perhaps give the temples time to relax and soften down. On the next inhale, let's come up to all fours. And we'll transition through tabletop and come into our swan pose on the left side. So perhaps walk your hands up a little further. Draw the knee up towards the left wrist, and then start to sink the hips down as you keep the right leg straight and come into your swan pose. As always, the left hip can be supported by a block or maybe even a rolled up blanket if you feel like perhaps it's quite lifted. Try to maintain the hips facing forward like two little points pointing towards the back edge of the mat. We'll pause here in our swan pose, remaining up high in our torso. Again, this is a slight back bend. Breathing through it. Maybe closing the eyes. Allowing that swirl of thoughts and emotions perhaps to start to slow down. Complete stillness is I admit, quite difficult to attain. But right now, we're just here on our mat, just us, our bodies, and our space, enjoying the rhythm of our breath in this time that we have completely to ourselves. And remember, even if you aren't physically by yourself right now, perhaps you have family at home. Perhaps you have little ones who like to join in on your yoga practice. You still have the space, your own private space, your inner workings to keep to yourself. We're going to slowly shift out of our swan pose by just shifting onto the left hip, rolling onto that left hip. Again, removing any props if you had anything supported underneath there. From here, you can go ahead and even use your arms to draw the right knee in. So now we're seated on the left hip and the knees are stacked on top of each other. I'm going to turn to this side so that you have a little better envisioning of what I am doing here. So we're kind of seated in this mermaid pose onto the left hip. The knees are stacked. We're going to go ahead and just use that to give the left hip a little release since we were opening onto that area for a little while. Adjust the knees. I like to actually have mine a little off kilter because I feel more balanced that way. So my knees are separated slightly. And from here, we're going to take a side body stretch. The right hand comes down to the mat. Start to lean towards the right. Maybe lift the left arm up and overhead. Enjoy a nice stretch here as you stay connected with the mat into the left hip. Reach toward the back of the room with your fingertips. At the same time, try to keep the chest open, wide across the collarbones, gazing up towards the sky. And if you ever feel tingling into the fingers of the left arm, allow yourself to lower and just go ahead and take a hold of the right shoulder with the left arm so that you don't have as much strain into the left side. And you can still gain a nice stretch into the long side of the left ribs and also into the left hip flexor. Let's take one more inhale here. And then exhale, we'll come back to an upright position. Moving into deer pose, coming to that 90-90 position. Again, we're going to get a nice stretch into the hips. This time the left shin is going to be parallel with the back edge of the mat and the right shin parallel with the side long edge of your mat. If you do have to have the ankles in and they're not quite 90 with each knee, that is totally acceptable. Adjust, find the position that feels good for you. And the sensation, we're looking for a stretch into the left hip, and then also you're going to get a little stretch in the inside of the right groin. From here, let's start to slowly walk the arms forward. You can stay up higher, you can stay completely upright. You can also lower down onto the forearms. Or forearms can come into a block or your bolster or pillow if you'd like to be a little bit higher for the posture. Sometimes getting all the way down to the mat is just a little too far for our bodies. Continue to breathe and relax in your deer pose. To come out, we're going to go ahead and walk the hands back in and come back to an upright position. Let's go ahead and bring the fingertips behind ourselves and give ourselves a couple of windshield wipers to release the hips and release that energy that we kind of move or stop the movement of the blood flow and the fluids that we have moving through the fascia and also into the joint. Give ourselves a little time to move into the next posture. When you're ready, we're going to go ahead, roll down once more onto your back. We're going to do that entire sequence on the other side. Enjoy it. Move into the other hip and start to feel the stretch on the other side as well. Let's begin again by just drawing the knees in. Maybe feeling the movement a little differently this time. Rocking and connecting. Perhaps just giving yourself a great big squeeze. Drawing the knees to the chest. And finally, when you are ready, let's extend the right leg out long and then keep the left knee drawn in. So we're coming into a reclined twist now on the opposite side. Pull that left knee into the chest. And then we're going to come into the very outside edge of the right hip. Drawing the left knee over to the right side. And place that right hand to the outside of the left thigh, just as an anchor. Reminder that the left knee does not need to touch the earth. Try to keep the left shoulder open, if possible, touching the mat. Now, for most of us, that will be lifted. We generally have tight shoulders. And that, is just maybe where our body is. But we want to have that very important sensation of drawing the shoulder down towards the mat. Feeling the left knee be heavy. Continuing with the breath. Allowing that expansion of both the back of the body and the front. And that gentle ease of the outgoing breath as the navel draws in. This is definitely one of my go-to poses before bed. Probably a good thing in the morning as well. It's a reminder to our spine that our spine can move in many different directions instead of just bending forward, maybe to pick things up. And once more, we're going to come out of this in a different way than we normally do. So instead of unwinding and coming onto our back, we're going to come onto our stomachs, keeping that left knee open if it feels good. And we're going to unravel until we're onto our bellies. So we're in our half frog position now onto the left side. Again, if it's too much on your low back, coming into this back bend, go ahead and come into Sphinx. Otherwise, keeping the right leg straight, the left knee bent. We'll stay lifted in the chest so that we're coming out of the shoulders. And the elbows are pushing, or the elbows are just slightly in front of the shoulders. If you want to create more activation, you can draw the elbows in towards the torso, drawing them in towards your body. And you'll feel yourself start to pull the torso, the upper chest, through the upper arms, increasing the back bend and opening into the front chest just a little more, staying wide across the collarbone. Breathe. And that feels so perfectly lovely. You can start to extend the left leg back. We'll take a moment in Sphinx just to find our alignment. Maybe rock the hips from left to right, releasing the low back, giving yourself a little massage onto the belly, opening up the feet, still lifted in the chest. Then if you would like to go deeper into your supported cobra, find that bolster or pillow again, and then we'll work it underneath the lower ribs. We'll take one more round. The front of the elbows can come just in front of the pillow. Finding the support where you need it. Of course, bolsters and pillows come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and also firmness as well. I have quite a firm bolster, which I tend to really like, but some bolsters with years of use tend to get quite soft and squishy. So you may need to adjust or play around with it, perhaps come back to the practice, or even do this posture on your own time and see if you can find something that opens up a little further into the front body, enjoying that gentle pressure into the lower abdomen. Wonderful. I do have to catch myself because I could stay in Sphinx or Cobra for quite a while. I find supported back bends to feel so good onto my back personally. From here, again, let's go ahead and take the hands underneath the shoulders. We're going to push ourselves back. Your choice into a wide-legged or a narrow-legged child's pose, or maybe switch it up. Arms can extend out in front of you. If you'd like a little break into the shoulders, bring the arms alongside the body. And from here, again, we're going to start to massage out the forehead. Maybe work a little more into the temples. Going further from left to right. Enjoying this self-assisted massage. Finding your break in your day. Imagine that little reset button is right between the eyebrows. And all it takes is a little massage from left to right to encourage our day to slow down, our bodies, our minds. And when you're ready, we're going to push up. You can take your time. We'll come through tabletop. And again, we're going to come into our swan pose. So you may want to move the hands out a little further in front of you to make space to draw the right knee up and behind the right wrist. Straighten out that left leg. Find a nice balance from your left to your right hip. And then come into swan. From here, we're going to remain upright with the weight centered directly over the hips, getting a little more deepening into that pelvic girdle. And hold. As we did before, we're going to slowly transition out of swan by just coming onto the right hip, and then maybe use the arms to bring the left knee to meet the right. We'll come into that mermaid pose. Again, I'm going to swing over to this camera so that you can see a little more clearly, either stacking the knees, or if you'd like a little more balance or support so that you don't feel as wobbly, have the knees just slightly separated. So you're in this kind of mermaid seat. Left fingertips come down. Inhale the right arm up and over for a stretch all the way from that right hip flexor to the right pinky. Revolving the chest to stay open and look towards the sky. Of course, taking the options with the arm if you're feeling any sort of tingling from having the arm lifted over the head. That's pretty common. And when you're ready, let's go ahead and slowly release the right arm down from wherever position you had it at. And we're going to come into that figure four, or that deer pose, I should say, that 90-90 pose once more. So the right shin will be in front. I'll turn again so that we're all lined up in the same direction, facing the back edge of the mat. So the right shin is facing or in line with the back edge, and the left shin is in line with the opposite long edge. From here, we'll start to walk the fingertips forward, pausing, staying higher if you would like, or maybe lowering all the way down to the forearms. Stretching the outside of that right glute. Keep the feet flexed. And just breathe. Settle in. When you're ready, let's slowly bring ourselves back to upright. Start to draw that left leg around and facing the back edge of the mat now. No worries. We'll take a couple of windshield wipers. And when you're ready, we'll go ahead and bring the soles of the feet to reach the mat. And we're going to go ahead and cross the right ankle over the top of the left knee for a seated figure four stretch. Now you can start with that left knee. You can actually have the left leg all the way on the ground if you would like to stay here. And slowly start to work your way into having the sole of the foot touching the mat. Keep the right foot flexed. Allow the strength of that inner thigh just to keep that right knee open. And then the chest lifted so we're not falling back into the shoulders. Staying right here. Maybe draw that left foot in a little closer to deepen the stretch. Let's slowly straighten that left leg out. You can go ahead and straighten out the right. Maybe give the knees a little bit of a wiggle to release the legs. And we'll take that or the seated figure 4 on the opposite side. So let's begin by drawing the left foot over the right knee. You can stay right here. I already feel pretty tight right there. You can start to lean back, draw the sole of the right foot to the mat, and hold in your seated figure 4. Drawing that right foot closer to you will deepen the stretch. Don't allow yourself to collapse into the chest or into the low back. Try to stay nice and tall in your seat, connecting with the sit bones towards the earth, opening, pushing that left knee out, and keeping the left foot flexed. Continue to breathe. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and relax that right leg down. Extend the left. Give the legs a little pat on the back of the mat. We're going to come into one final pose. This has been a very juicy, very calming overall practice. And now we're going to challenge ourselves by coming into frog, which as a yin pose, I would say is probably one of the most challenging. So we're going to start to come onto our mat. You can use the long ways of your mat if you like. I'm going to come into here from an angle just so you can get a better picture. But keep your knees supported so that they feel like they have some sort of cushion underneath them. Opening the knees up as wide as feels comfortable. Keeping the feet flexed so that the ankle is in line with the knee. And then from here, shift the hips back so the hips start to stay in line with the knee as well. Come as far as you feel like you're able, perhaps lowering down onto your forearms or even onto your bolster or block. And then we'll hold in frog pose. This will be our last pose before we cool down just for a moment into our version of our Shavasana. Of course, this is a very strong pose. It really moves quite deeply into the inner thighs. And that external rotation of the hips is quite a lot, and depending on our anatomy, some of us may feel this quite more than others. Now that we're a little more warmed up as far as moving into some of our other hip openers today, hopefully you can find a little more ease and continue to breathe. Finding movement with your breath within the body will allow you to stay into the posture with more ease. And then over time, the depth will start to grow. Of course, with everything, it takes time. It's just very important to give yourself the allowance to know that you may have a goal in mind, but that does not mean that we'll always hit that goal immediately. Anything that's worth it is going to take a little bit of work, right? And I found those that stick with their yin practice and make time to slow down for themselves and hit that reset button, they can be very consistent. They find the value of slowing down in their practice. We're going to slowly move out of our frog pose, but I encourage you to take this quite slowly. Start to shift the hips forward and then draw the heels together. That'll help you take some of the pressure out of the hips. Push up into your hands. Use your arms to lift yourself up and come out of that frog pose. Now from frog pose, we're going to move into our final pose, which will be just a supported child's pose. Bring the knees in. We'll make this a narrow-legged child's pose to give a little break onto those hips since we did open them up quite wide. Adjust your bolster. You can have it sideways. If you would like to make space for your bolster to come between the knees, you can do that as well. But just allow the side of the face to come to rest onto the bolster or pillow. And relax into just a tiny little ball. Allow the arms to soften, the shoulders to feel heavy. We'll take the last minute or so here, as our entire sequence is quite relaxing. In a yin practice, you don't normally need as long in your shavasana. But we do want an end to kind of tie the whole practice together, to lead into this space, from transitioning from this space to the space off of our mat, where we carry this sense of stillness, of calm, and start to bring that with us as we move off of our mat. If you feel like you want to have more time on your mat, you want to hang out here in this child's pose, feel free. Whenever you are ready, you can start to use the upper body to push yourself up. Coming to a seat onto your heels as you would in hero's pose. From here, let's inhale the arms up. Draw the palms together and then bring them down through heart center. As we close our very restful yin practice for today. As always, thank you for joining me on your mat today. And then hit that subscribe button so that you make sure to get more of these slowed down, nice, even, mellow practices, along with all of the other practices I have to offer here on this channel. Many fitness-based yoga classes, short practices, long. You'll find many of it. Check out my playlists and go ahead and hit that comment button. Let me know what you enjoy personally in your practice to find that space for yourself during the day. As always, I hope you have a great day. Make it a good one. Bye.